Right, today is something different. We're going to start to assemble an LT230. We're going to change the gear ratios, but at the same time we're going to fit one of these Ashcroft ATBs. Now we'll come on to that section in a little bit, but this bit is principally about doing things in sections, and it's not about taking it to bits. Any man and his dog can take a transmission to bits. It's just putting it back together a bit that's the difficult bit. So yesterday I spent a good part of the day sandblasting and cleaning and bead blasting the aluminium housings such as this, and JP, I took it down, I took the main casing down to JP so he could bush it and get it ready for the bushing the casing when the new intermediate shaft comes, because the customer's ordered a new heavy duty intermediate shaft, so we don't know really what size it is. Usually what we do, we take the old shaft, put it on the grinder, not just a hand grinder like that, but a proper grinding machine, and make it parallel again, because sometimes they're a little bit deformed, and then we make the bush to suit. But this time we're going to use a new shaft, but we don't really know what the size is. So to get a jump on this job, I've already got some bearings from Ashcroft's before. These are Koyo bearings, that's what they supply. The thing is, I've had them in stock for a little while, but what I'll do is I'll replace them when the kit comes in. That's kind of easy, isn't it? And I've also got an oil seal for here, and I do believe I've got a felt washer for the shaft that goes on here. Now we'll just do some basic fitting notes, I think. And I think it might be simpler. Like I say, I got this pressed out, and this is the old shaft. There's the bearing. Now it feels a bit rough, but when I took it out and it was oiled, it felt kind of nice. So I put these to one side for projects and things like that, because they're sometimes handy to make things from. But there's nothing much to it really. I just put it quickly through the the parts washer yesterday. But one of the things I want to tell you is that there's a heavy duty shaft for this. I'll write below what the actual make is. I'm not really sure. It's like a bluey purpley type colour, but we've had problems with the Ashcroft ones before, whereas the spline here doesn't fit quite a nice into there like it should. It used to stick, and I had a word with David and he said, well, it could be this, could be that, and in the end what we ended up doing, we found out it was this piece that wasn't machined quite right, and we got an old centre diff. We put some grinding paste like that and wound it up and down until it was nice. It was just a little burr on it somewhere. We don't know where it was, but it's something to watch out for, because if you assemble this and this sticks, so this would be in effect be upside down and this piece would be like that. When you drop it in with the weight and it sticks, you have a hell of a job trying to get it out. Don't do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go across to the press and I'm going to press this bearing off. Now this is one downside about this type of idea, because usually you would press on and off this shaft by using the inside. So use the inside of the bearing to push it on and also to push it off, but in this instance we can't, because we can't get underneath it. So we're going to have to draw an exception and push the bearing here to get it off. So when we push it on here, and when we put it on the housing, we push it here. That doesn't damage the bearing. Now, bearings are getting expensive, so could you use Chinese bearings? Maybe. See, I had a bit of an experience last week when I was doing this differential here, is that I got a set of bearings that were Chinese bearings. I thought I'd give them a go and see what they were like. I'll dig it out and see if I can find and try and explain what the problem was. Right, are you still there? Good. So when I was doing the differential on the pinion, what I do is I have a dummy bearing, and we're going to use a dummy bearing when we put this LT230 together. So what's a dummy bearing? It's a brand new seat, or was it a cone? No, it's a cup, that's it, that's what they call them, a cup. Now I identify this by putting 4 little notches on there, but it's a brand new one. But what JP's done is taken a couple of thousandths of an inch off the outside, so this just drops in and out without hammering it in and out and damaging the shims. And that's the last thing you want, because the shims are expensive and they're kind of difficult to find if you're miles away from anywhere. So that's been done. So that is this, we know that the height from here and where the rollers touch is exactly the same, correct? Makes sense, doesn't it? You'll find that's one of the most invaluable tools you'll ever do if you do a few of these. Use them on R380s as well too. Yes, R380s. So let's have a look down here and I'll show you the difference, because this is a Chinese bearing supplied by all makes, Britpart, and this is the original bearing. Now this is one I've got out of the bin. This is the bin part, but dimensionally they're identical, not a problem. But if we look at the inside, you can see that the Timken bearing here, this has 18 rollers in it and this has 15 rollers in it. Not quite the same. And what my problem was this: if I was using this bearing with my dummy bearing, it don't fit. It's a different angle. Look. Whereas if I've used it in the Chinese bearing, fits perfectly. Likewise, when I put the Timken in one, it's not quite the same. Oh no, wait a minute, that's a Timken. No, wait a minute, this is it here. So when I put the Timken one in, it's actually stood prouder. So there we go. That was a bit of a faux pas, wasn't it? Which is which now? That's a Timken, that goes there, that goes in there, and that goes in the box. So you could get into difficulties setting up a bearing if you haven't got a good quality make. And I always go for Timkens, Koyo, anything like this, but the Chinese stuff's not really worth bothering with. You can get some cheapy bearings off for these type of bearings. They're a very common thing. What's the number? 6207s. 6207s, so that means, I think, was it times by, was it 7? I can't remember. I think you times the last number by 7 and you get the shaft diameter. I'll have to check that out, I could be wrong. But it is multiply the last number by the, and you get the number. So I'm going to, I don't know why I'm rambling on. So I'm going to press this bearing off here now. We're going to clean this up in the wet bead blaster, make sure it's all nice and clean and dry. And then we're going to push the bearing on, and we're going to fit it to this housing. That'd be interesting, won't it? Right, so those are all the parts cleaned up in the wet bead blaster. They come up kind of nice. Now for the Britannica view, this is the Speedo drive, and I've been asked quite a few times which way does it go on. Well, it doesn't really matter, but it seems to be those rings here go towards this flange here. Alright? But it doesn't really matter, because the teeth go that way, so if you put it on that way, it doesn't mean it goes backwards. If it will go on, what's where it's stuck now. Here. There you go. So the teeth still go that way. Easy, isn't it? Anyway, we'll put it on like that. It is a tight fit. Well, it's a close fit. Spin it. There we go. There's the spacer tube. Just give it a final clean out. And that goes onto there like that, leaving us enough space to put the bearing on. What we're going to pay attention to is the splines. They look pretty good, and I've also cleaned up the flange that goes on here, so we're just going to check it, see if it goes on nice. Is it? Ooh, it's a bit tight. Oh, it's a bit tight on there. Let's have an inspection of this. Let's take that off. Ah, there's a tooth there. It's not quite right. It's got a bit of a ding in it. I think I'll just take a little needle file and file that back. Right, it was just that little burr that was on there, so I took it off with a needle file, and now we find, if we can line this spline up, that fits really nice. Okay, so that's a nice fit. You don't want to be sort of hammering things. Now, one thing I did notice, this is a sort of a fairly recent flange, you've got to inspect this bit here, make sure that there's no wear on this groove. If it is, well, JP for me in the past has machined these and put a sleeve on them that's like a hardened chrome type stuff, and then puts it through his grinder. It's a lot of work, but if we haven't got one and we're stuck, well, that's the only way to do it. But I noticed this one's got a shield on it, and it don't fit. It came off. So what we're going to do is, what are we going to do? Well, we could use this Loctite 638 retaining compound, sleeve retainer. This is pretty good. I used this just recently on the car plugs and some other bits and pieces, but yeah, it doesn't go on like that, it must go on like that, and you can see where it's been spinning around here. That's not good news. So this is all nice and clean. We're just going to apply some brake cleaner onto that and go and get some. Now you're probably saying that you could actually crimp this back in again. Well, you could, but you just don't know what you're getting into, do you? You could actually bugger it up and make a real Horlicks of the job. Right, I've established that the ring goes on like that, but I'm going to leave that for a little while, and we're going to just concentrate on this bearing for now. Don't take bearings out of packets until you're ready to use them, you know. And that feels really, really nice. That's a good one. But we're ready to fit this. So we're going to take it to the press. We're going to press down on here. Alright, nowhere else. We're going to support that on a flat plate and press here. Not here, because if you press it here, you're going to damage the races inside. Not good. Over the years and a period of time, you will acquire lots and lots of spacers, special bits and pieces. So I have over on my press a few ducats full of tubes just for LT230s, and then there's another one just for R380s, so I can reach in behind, pick out a tube, and this was perfect. This one fits here just lovely. You see, it just fits on that bearing race there. We'll put that to one side, and that is really nice. So the next thing we're going to do is fit it in this housing. The things we have to observe is that no animal's been in here and hit anywhere inside of this face here and dinged and dented it. This piece here, this is where the bearing sits, otherwise it could sit a little bit cockeyed. We inspect all the housing, all the threads are being cleaned out, inspect it for cracks and things like this. I've taken the Speedo drive out, as you can see, and bead blasted it inside, so that's nice. Now one thing to observe is if you ever swapping LT230s across from Disco 2s or Range Rovers or something like this that's not got the Speedo drive in, so if it came out of a Disco 2 and it hasn't got the Speedo drive in, then you're kind of knackered. You need one of these, because to remachine that was kind of difficult to get it all in line and sort it out, so we're running short of those. Because a lot of people find Disco 2 boxes and put them into TD5s, but you need this piece, so be aware of that. So next thing, we're going to take this and we're going to press it in. So let me show you, before taking the camera over to the press, how we actually do it. If a bearing's very bad, it's not exactly the end of its life, because you can use it as a tool to push the bearings in. And all I do is cut a chunk out of the bearing like that. And that allows us to destroy all the bits and pieces of bearings and keep this piece, because what we're going to do is use it to push the bearing in, and we put a split in so that this flexes a little bit so it's easy to get out. So you put one on top of there, one on top of there, and then I use a little spacer which is an old hub nut, push that on, and that will push the outer race into this housing without any damage. So there we are, that's the bearing installed, and if it's done correctly, you will see that there's a groove there for the snap ring to go in, or the circlip. Now I've got the old circlip here. Now this is the one. No, this is the one. They're both the same actually. I think. Yeah, they're both the same. So I'm going to just clean this up and then we'll put this in. Yeah, this was kind of a dirty gearbox, the oil had not been changed for a long time and it was all cruddy and things like this. So working on them's not really nice. I'm going to use a big pair of ratcheting circlip pliers to put that piece in, because they are kind of big. Like that. Now you won't be able to get right down to the bottom, and I'll explain to you why. The circlip is, the hole in the circlip, if I can get that in there, is longer. The pin here is longer than the hole, you know, the circlip is thick. So I simply just get them like that, and if it hasn't gone in completely, I just get a hammer and a small punch, tap the circlip down, and then it snaps into place. It was easy, wasn't it? So we can discard those bits. The seal is the next thing. I always use portico seals, these ones, FTC 4939G. They're kind of a nice seal. They're already pre-lubricated up, and we're going to put that on there, and we're going to use the same method using those split bearing rings, this split bearing, to push this into place. So there, that's it in. Feels lovely. We'll put that bearing to one side, we don't need that. The next thing we're going to do is the Speedo drive, which is here. Now inside there's a little seal and there's an O-ring, but this is pretty grotty on the outside, so I'm going to degrease this first. We'll come back, I'll show you how to get the seals out. So inside there's a seal. A lot of people miss that one out, and to get it out I have a pick thing here with a slight bend on it, so it can go into the hole here and try and latch onto that seal. There goes my soft jaws, and try and get it out. But over the years, see if we can get it out. It won't be too tight. There we go. That's the little seal. Alright, so now we can take that out of the vise. Now we can take the O-ring off. The O-ring shouldn't be too bad to get off, but sometimes they're kind of hard, so we'll just use this piece of file here. Oh, you didn't see it, but it just broke off. So we take that O-ring off, throw that away, and then we're going to put that through the wet bead blaster and make it all look like new. So there's the same part after being in the wet bead blaster. It makes a lovely job. Everything's nice and clean and not damaged. They really are like new. Now I know not a lot of people have got access to a wet bead blaster, but if you did have one, find one locally, gather it all up and just take it down to them, and all the parts will come up like new. The thing is, you really need to give them some sort of a coating, like crown rust proofing, drink up, because they'll go rusty very quickly. Bad thing. So what we need now is an O-ring. That comes with your kit, and just slide it on like this. That's it. Make sure it's in the groove like Madonna. The next thing we're going to do, because you see I've got a box of bits and pieces here, so I can just take my pick out of these, and that is the little seal that goes around the shaft of the speedometer. Have I got it here? Yes, here. This one here is a blue one. I'll clean that up and we'll come to that in a minute. So to get that in, all I simply do is drop it in there, and we'll find a socket and we'll just push that down with a socket. So here is a perfect socket. See, it fits lovely, and all we're going to do is go on the bench like that, with your hammer, tap it down, and that's going to be happy. Next thing, I'll clean this up and we'll come back. So there's the Speedo drive all nicely cleaned up. ready to go. Now, we've been through some videos before on different coloured gear drives. This is for a 16-inch wheel 235. You can change the wheels and knock the speedo out, you know, change the diameter of the tyre and knock the speedo, but this is a standard ratio. There are some different gears, but they're kind of rare, so the blue one is sort of the standard one for your speedo. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit this in. We're just going to put a bit of light oil in there when I can find it. Just a bit of light oil on that shaft. And a little bit inside that housing. And then that goes into there like that. And then you just push it and that goes onto the oil seal. Now, there's not much holding these in. There's just your speedo cable holds this in when you put it onto this piece here. Look, when it goes onto here, that's all that holds it in. So we're going to lube up this outside, and we're going to pop that in like that. Now the gear will mesh like that. Did you see it going? And that's it. You don't need to hammer it in. Now, to get these out, if they're rusted in, take this shaft out first, push it this way and take it out, and then get a little punch on the hole. Can't see it now, but believe me, here's one I made earlier. Get a punch on this hole and punch this away. So in effect, you're doing this. Hit this way and it'll come out. You can try and get them out by the prising off the sides like this. This is what somebody's done here. They've tried to prise it out and broke it. It hasn't really destroyed it, but it doesn't look very good, does it? So that's that done. Now, the next bit is this front flange, this rear flange, and we're getting towards the end. So why I kept this to the end is I'm going to do things just a little bit different on this one. On the later Pumas on here, they moved away from using the felt seal and they used retaining compound on the spline, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. So that's why I haven't used retaining compound yet. So I'm going to put some on this this ring. You don't want much, because if you put too much on, it's a waste. Now it's important to clean, so you've got your ring on like that, and it's important to clean off any surplus as quickly as possible. So what I'm going to do is, just as an experiment, I'm going to leave that. We'll come back to this video. I'm going to have a cup of tea, come back and see how long it takes for that to dry. Well, that was a long cup of tea. It was probably about an hour and a half. This has stuck like feces to a hairy blanket. I think to get it off you've got to heat it up. But that's good. I'm very pleased at that. That's worked excellent. Better than I thought. I'm not going to prise it off. But what I'm going to do now is fit this flange to this shaft. Just to finish this job off. Now there's already some lubrication in here, so we don't have to worry about that. But I've been trying to find out some information I saw a little while ago about putting some retainer on the end of these threads here. Not too much, just a wee bit. Like that. So they don't leak. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Anyway, that's it. So we're not, like I say, we're not oiling this because there's already grease on there. I'm going to slide this on like that. Beautiful. I had to go back and double check I put the flange on the right way around. That dust shield, yes it is, because this has been replaced as part of a kit. So that's good. Now if you ever want to replace these studs, all you've got to do is take this circlip off, but you've got to take the flange off, take the circlip off, replace the bolts, and Bob's your uncle. So what we're going to do now is put the felt ring on. Now I like to put a little bit of oil on those, just to soak them up a bit so they're not, you know, like completely dry. Put that on there, and then the washer, and then the nut, and then we're going to put it in the vise. Right, I think we're getting down to our nitty gritty, so we're going to use this little bar. This is sort of an essential part of Land Rover kits. It's just a flange off a prop shaft or one of these flanges here, and just welded it to a piece of bar. But you know then that the hole pattern's exactly right. As he said, he's put it on wrong. There we go. Go on. There's so much loose on these things here. Oh, there we go. And that allows us to torque down these bolts properly. That's if this hasn't gone to sleep. Ta-da! And that's it. Now we can put our screws in, back in here. Back in here. I like to put the nuts back on. I think we seem to have lost one somewhere. Must be under the car. Just to protect the threads whilst you're messing about. Because they're so easy to bang around, you know what I mean? And that, I miss it, I like to miss one. And that's the rear housing. It feels absolutely beautiful. There's no banging or knocking or anything like that. So that's taken care of that. I think the next bit will be the differential once we get all the parts. The Ashcroft differential, should I say. I'm not going to show you how to do a regular differential because the whole purpose of this is fitting an AATB. So when the gears and things like that come from Ashcroft, we'll continue this series. See you later.